Okay, we're going to finish up the rest of the story here and then try to come to a conclusion about the form and the content relationship in terms of the genre and the message. So we notice this extravagant kind of description about the dance. So Harrison and the ballerina spring into the air, supposedly jumping so high they're defying the law of gravity and the laws of motion as well. They real-world swiveled, flounced, capered, gamboled, and spun. They leapt like deer on the moon. Well, on the moon, it's weightless, right? There's less gravity on the moon. Notice they leapt like deer. That's going to be important in a moment. The studio ceiling was 30 feet high, but each leap brought the dancers nearer to it. It became their obvious intention to kiss the ceiling. They kissed it. So, is it really possible for human beings to jump 30 feet high? Obviously not, right? This is total exaggeration. It's hyperbolic. It's hyperbole. And it's also satiric. Okay, so it's satire, it's satirical hyperbole. It's so ridiculous. But the idea is they're going above the laws of the land too. They've thrown off the laws of the Handicapper General and all their weights and all the transmitters blocking their brains from working. And so it kind of represents the freedom they are experiencing. The weightlessness, the freedom from this oppressive government apparatus and all this technology on them and surveillance and brainwashing and media, all of that. They've taken over the media here, right? They're broadcasting this as well. And then, neutralizing gravity with love and pure will, they remained suspended in air inches below the ceiling, and they kissed each other for a long, long time. So, did they really do this? Is it literal? Or perhaps it's also what the audience feels. The audience has never seen true art before. They've never seen real dancing and real ballet. And of course, ballet, ballet is famous for its gracefulness. It's very elegant and beautiful. It's very physically demanding. So it's a high form of art. It's very technical, and it's seen as one of the most beautiful forms of human art, especially with the use of the body. They have to meet very, very detailed and particular requirements bodily to be able to do ballet dancing. You need to be super strong, and the women need to be very, very petite and light, and so on. Okay, so no, it's not a literal description, but the people watching them might feel like they were hovering as high as the ceiling and kissing each other for a long time in mid-air and breaking the laws of gravity, because all they've ever seen before is the opposite of actual good art, or even people just having like the ability to do their job well. The announcer can't even make a basic announcement. The person putting slide up on the TV screen can't even put it the right way up the first time. So the whole society has actually conditioned people to be incompetent and to not perform well. Making them equal has made them somewhat useless. because you're lowering it to the lowest level. However, it's not going to turn out so well for these guys. It was then that Diana Moon Glampers, the Handicapper General, came into the studio with a double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun. She fired twice, and the Emperor and Empress were dead before they hit the floor. Diana Moon Glampers loaded the gun again. She aimed it at the musicians and told them that they had 10 seconds to get their handicaps back on. It was then that the Bergeron's television tube burned out. Hazel turned to comment about the blackout to George, but George had gone into the kitchen for a can of beer. George came back in with the beer, paused while a handicap signal shook him up, and then he sat down again. "You been crying?" he said to Hazel. "Yup," she said. "What about?" he said. "I forget," she said. "Something real sad on television." "What was it?" he said. "It's all kind of mixed up in my mind," said Hazel. "Forget sad things," said George. "I always do," said Hazel. "That's my girl," said George. He winced. There was the sound of a riveting gun in his head. "Gee, I could tell that one was a doozy," said Hazel. "You can say that again," said George. "Gee," said Hazel, "I could tell that one was a doozy." All right, notice that Diana Moon Glampers just shows up with a shotgun, fires twice, boom, they're both dead. So we have military, violent, oppressive enforcement of the restrictive laws. And it's obviously represented satirically, because what are the chances that the top lady in this government institution, I guess this handicapper segment of the government, it's a kind of military organization, or like FBI, some kind of agency or something. What are the chances she's going to show up with a gun and shoot two random people? Not likely, right? So the point of exaggeration is clear, but it's with a gun that she kills and oppresses any resistance. Okay, so this is totalitarianism. Through force with the gun, plus through the media. Notice how the TV gets a blackout all of a sudden. Supposedly their tube burned out. But did it really? Or did the government just shut off the TV? Because they don't want you to see what's going to happen next. Since they just broadcast two murders, right, on live TV. Okay, so obviously all of this is greatly exaggerated. So, like, what's the conclusion that we can come to about the form and the content here? We've already established that we're looking for a relationship, right, between these two. The content is about absolute equality. And the only way you can get absolute equality, actually, is through inequality, through the opposite. All right, through all of this crazy stuff. Now, the form is satire. It's dystopian sci-fi. And even in dystopian sci-fi, the portrayal of technology, right, use of media, the use of certain handicaps, the handicaps are all also silly exaggerations. They're silly and ridiculous exaggerations. Like, there was much better technology he could have imagined when this story was written. He could have made it more realistic, but he purposely makes it unrealistic, even to the point where the very head of the state organization shows up and kills two people with a shotgun. It's a very heavy-handed form of satire here. It's not subtle. It's silly and ridiculous. The technologies themselves are not advanced technology, like wearing a bag of metal around your neck. So it's very simplistic. Why? Well, that's where we come to moving toward a theme. Okay? Absolute equality is totally silly and ridiculous and unrealistic. Absolute equality is impossible. And it's just a setup to get people not to think clearly and give up their rights. So, absolute equality cannot and does not exist. Trying to get it is dangerous and foolish. All through so this can be like a theme statement. Okay, so as shown through the form of satire, which exaggerates and distorts and shows things to be silly, ridiculous, and unrealistic, so too absolute equality cannot and does not exist, and trying to get it is dangerous and foolish, because absolute equality is impossible, and it's a silly, ridiculous, unrealistic thing to go for. Because people throughout the story are all naturally gifted to a lower or higher degree in all of the aspects of their humanity, including their intelligence, their beauty, and their physical strength. The very existence of handicaps prove that there's inequality. So to confuse inequality with equity, helping those who are disadvantaged to be brought up to a level of functioning in a fair way, is totally different than enforcing absolute equality, which is just actually an impossible thing that the government uses to actually control everybody else in the society. And so we can see that the video version, the film version of this story, kind of totally misses the point of the satire. But because modern film wants to show everything in a highly realistic way, as part of the media format of, Hollywood movies and highly realistic special effects and things like that, for a modern person, if we saw all of this ridiculousness in a video format, we might think, this story is stupid or something like that. Now, it could be done properly if they did the satire and the comedy aspect of it properly. But you'll see that the movie version moved toward a much more realistic kind of technological way, and they got rid of some of this exaggerated, silly, ridiculous stuff. But unfortunately, they missed part of the message and part of this relationship between form and conduct. So yeah, that's it for Harrison Bergeron. See you in the next short story.